taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of Joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
What's up, guys? I'm your host, Dante Gomez, and we are here on Coffee Break. It's a victory Friday for the Broncos, and we are joined by none other than James Marilat on a Marilat Friday as well. A little special occasion for us. How lucky are we to have James on a Friday?
Sure. Bookend the week. We started on Monday. We were in here. We're here on Friday. And it's a much happier tone today after a Broncos victory.
I was going to say, hopefully it's a much better vibe on this show than not that it wasn't a good vibe on Monday, but just a happier presence today.
Yes, for sure.
Broncos dominate the Saints Thursday Night Football 33-10. Became a boring game the other way just because it was such a blowout.
Yeah.
We're not used to too many of those in Denver, especially being on the right side of those. Let's start off with, because I know everyone wants to know, how are you going to discredit this Broncos?
I am not going to discredit it. Look, I think they showed last night they're without a doubt the best JV team in the NFL. They are. I mean, they went out and just kicked New Orleans up and down the field. That was a JV team that the Saints had out there. It was. And the Broncos dominated them. They're the best of the bad teams. That's what they are.
Okay, so
the best of the bad teams.
On my drive in, I was thinking the Broncos, as the kids say, are a very mid team. But that means that they beat all the teams below them, and then they'll probably lose to some of the teams better.
I thought right-handed Tebow was really good yesterday. Did a really nice job, running around 10 carries, 75 yards. Threw some passes right in between two wide open guys a couple of times.
Yeah, that was tough. Let's start off there. Actually, let's start off. Bo Nix, slow start. First couple drives didn't quite look comfortable. Settled in and kind of took off the rest of the game after that. A lot of scoring drives. Will Lutz goes 4 for 4, perfect from his field goals. Had a couple touchdowns there with Javonte Williams. What did you make of the slow, first 2-3 drives, and then they kind of kicked it into gear after that?
Yeah, I mean, look, and I'm somewhat kidding around. Like, Bo Nix's ability to run the football really does help this offense. I mean, he had 75 yards rushing. They ran for 225 as a team. You're going to win most games if you run for 225 yards.
Most since 2013 from the Broncos.
They dominated up front. They really did on both sides of the ball. And that was the key to it. Do I think he's a great passer? No. Is he kind of Tebow-esque? Yeah, he is. I mean, he threw some ugly passes. The one before half that Honey Badger dropped, the pick was just a terrible throw. And it wound up costing the Saints. I mean, he might have scored had he intercepted it, because it was Bo Nix, an offensive lineman, that stood between him and the goal line. And instead, it ends up being 3 points for the Broncos. So that was a game-changing play. Look, I don't think he's playing any better than he did in week 1. He looked just like he did in Seattle. What was the best thing he did in Seattle? Run around on the touchdown drive late. And, he didn't throw the ball particularly well. He doesn't look comfortable. People are talking about his footwork. People are talking about his decision-making. Those are all the things we were told that he was great at, right? He's a supercomputer. He's a processor. He's got great footwork and fundamentals. He's played 61 college games. He's the son of a coach and all those things. And then you watch him play, and it's just a sloppy mess. It makes you go, well, that's why he was the 6th quarterback picked in the draft. But he's able to move the chains and keep the offense rolling because he can run around and make plays. And I don't think that's going to be able to work forever. But for right now, and especially against that team, it was good enough on a Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people discredit the running ability of him in terms of, when Lamar Jackson does it, it's awesome. When, Patrick Mahomes does it occasionally, it's awesome. And then when Bo Nix does it, it's like, oh, well, he needs to do this to survive. Running the ball is part of the game. Like, you still get points for a running touchdown versus a passing touchdown. You still get the yards for, running yards versus passing yards. It all counts the same. So is the running really that big do you think it's more of a crutch? Is that where you're going at there? Or
yeah, I mean, look, it's let's not put him in the same sentence as Lamar Jackson, right? Lamar Jackson, if you try to game plan to take away him as a runner, he's still going to run for a ton of yards and can beat you. I'm convinced when competent defenses look at it and say, we just can't let Bo Nix run. Like we saw 5 days ago when they played the Chargers, that offense, when he couldn't run around and make plays, that offense was brutal for 3 quarters. So it's just, to me, that's not a sustainable part of his game. He's not Lamar Jackson. If teams are going to give it to you like the Saints did, sure, take it. And, I've said before, hey, he didn't make a throw that, and I've said this after a lot of games, that Jarrett Stidham couldn't have made. He didn't again last night, but Jarrett Stidham couldn't run for 75 yards on 10 carries. That's what he's bringing to the offense right now. Great, we'll take it. But at some point, he has to start making wide open throws. For the first time last night, I thought Sean Payton schemed things up to where there were plays to be made, and his quarterback let him down by missing throws.
Yeah, a couple missed throws there, particularly early. And then you mentioned the Tyrann Mathieu one misplay by the Saints. I don't know where to go with this. So speaking of actually Jarrett Stidham, we got a little Jarrett Stidham sighting as he, I don't know if you were watching till the end, but he did kneel the ball at the end there. And that's just how dominant of a win it was. Actually, I want to play a little game here real quick. I'm going to have you guess.
Okay.
So taking only Thursday night football games and throwing the Thanksgiving games out because those don't really match up with the Thursday night feel to it. Out of the last 5 seasons, so like 5.5 seasons, going back to 2019 season, there's been 77 games.
Okay.
How many games do you think have ended in a score difference of bigger than 23 or more? Like what the Broncos did last night.
Okay, out of 77?
77. So I'll give you the whole number. So
10.
3.
3.
So the Broncos did do something that does not happen a lot. That's 3.8% of the time of the games.
I think Thursday night football gets a bad rap. I do. So, and I went with the low number, figuring I didn't think there's been all that many lopsided games. 3 makes that point even more. And people say, oh, it's unfair for the players. Like the injury rate on Thursday night football is actually less than it is on Sunday games and Monday games. So it's just one of those things that's easy to say. Thursday night football tends to look bad on paper because it's kind of that way to get everybody a national game. So you end up with a lot of like, who wants to watch Cleveland? Who wants to watch Jacksonville? Who wants to watch Denver and the Saints? Right? Like that's why it's a bad product. If that was, Baltimore and Cincinnati out there, it would be an entertaining game. But yeah, they went out and dominated. And I'm kind of joking about the fact that they're the best JV team, but I'm kind of not. Like, listen, it's a bad football team in front of you. You should blow them out. And
that's what they did, yeah.
So you get credit for that. But it's also like, I'm not going to call the mayor and ask him to start planning the parade route. Like, I think we got to keep it in some context. Would it shock me if they lost to the Panthers a week from Sunday? It would not. This team is all over the board. They should beat Carolina. They should get to 5-3. And then we'll find out because you got Baltimore and Kansas City, both games on the road. That'll be the true test of what this team can do.
So I think it just depends on what the bar is for this team. Because if you're asking for an 8-9 season, a 9-8 season, I think this team's on track for that. But if you're asking for a parade, if you're asking for the playoff win potentially, I think that's just a little unfair on a rookie quarterback, rebuilding roster. You have Russ's dead cap hit going too. So I think if the expectation is playoffs and parade, no, they're not that. But if
so
the
we're
expectation,
grading them on a curve.
Yeah.
Because they have the self-induced Russell Wilson dead cap.
Yeah.
They created that problem by giving him the contract and by releasing him and deciding him to move on. They have a rookie quarterback, the 6th quarterback taken in the draft. That's a self-induced problem. They have a rebuilding roster, self-induced problem. So, but we should give them a pass and
not
say,
a pass,
hey,
but a lower
8-9
expectation
is going to be great. They went 8-9 a year ago.
Yeah, exactly. And
my vote would have been let's build upon that. Instead, they decided to take on all those problem areas. It's like, well, then if the problem was Russell Wilson and Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson and Josie Jewell, if those were the problems, shouldn't they be better this year with the problems gone?
Yes and no, because you have to admit, hey, we have a rookie quarterback. He's going to take some lumps in the season. It's a rookie. Every rookie ever struggles. No rookie comes in and just wins
veteran
the Super Bowl
at some point.
Yeah, the veterans struggle too. So I think if you're holding them to, again, the expectation of Super Bowl or playoffs, I think that's just you're setting them up for failure.
I never said Super Bowl. I didn't.
You said playing the parade.
I was just
they don't play parades for anything else.
Pump the brakes and put it in context of just because you went and beat New Orleans doesn't mean that you've suddenly turned this corner and all of a sudden you're one of the elite teams in the NFL. That's why I said they're the best JV team in the league. They're the best of the bad teams. They are.
Maybe you're referring to the parades they have in New Orleans all the time. So
No,
they did have one of those.
I'm not going to say the season was a failure if they go 10-7 and lose in the wild card round. That would be a huge step in the right direction. I think going 7-10, 8-9 to me would be a head scratcher. But the biggest answer we've all said from the get-go that they needed to find out this year, and this is kind of funny, is Bo Nix the answer? Well, he sure as heck better be. You took him number 12 overall. Like, he better be the answer. Okay, we're 7 games in. You had to vote today. You're going to turn in an early ballot. They're not going to let you watch the next 10 games. You have to vote. Is he the long-term answer or not?
Well, luckily, I get the opportunity to watch the next 10 games.
Nope,
as of right now, in this hypothetical, I would say yes. In terms of, you're not drafting a quarterback next year. You're going to let him play it out. You're going to see what he has. Continue to see what he has. Continue to build on what he's done. Hey, if teams want to try to take away the run, that should hypothetically open up the passing game more. Maybe he can figure out the passing game based on the defenses. If they do decide to creep up to the line, take away certain things of his game that he's been excelling at in the run game, ran for 75 yards last night. So I think it's hard to grade him in terms of, is he the guy after 7 games? I think that's just too early.
All right, if you're in Washington, is Jaden Daniels the guy?
You think so? But guess what? At the end of year 2, who knows?
Is Caleb Williams the guy?
You think so, but who knows? It's still so early.
I think you can make those determinations.
I don't think you can say yes or no this early. I think you have to wait 2 full seasons to say yes or no.
But in the hypothetical game we're playing, you have to make the decision now. So if I'm in Chicago and somebody asks me, you got to vote now, is Caleb Williams the answer? I'd say yes. If I'm in Washington and somebody said, is Jaden Daniels the answer? I got to say yes. Would I like to watch 44 games before I had to make that decision? Of course I would, but we're having to make it now. If I had to make it after watching 7 games of Bo Nix, I would say no. No, you can't miss wide open throws in the NFL because they're very rarely wide open throws in the NFL. A lot of times a guy is in by college standards is covered. That's open in the NFL. To miss those throws in pro football is inexcusable. And he did it multiple times last night.
Yeah, those were some college windows that he was missing yesterday, which was a little shocking even to me because, he was sold as an accurate passer coming out of college. That's everyone could talk about. I do like that as the game progressed, he got more accurate, better throws, and stuff started to open up for him. And we were told this all training camp, he doesn't make the same mistake twice. And it almost feels like that is true, where after he goes through a situation and, maybe doesn't make the perfect throw or a good throw, some would argue, he does seem to fix it and figure it out as the game progresses, as the season progresses. So I see a much more confident Bo Nix out there than I did in week 1. I see a much more competent in the pocket Bo Nix than I didn't see a much more competent Bo Nix than I did in week 1 as well. So I do think there are progressions that he's made. However, he is still a work in progress, and that's what I would expect to have a rookie.
I expect it to be a work in progress too. I just expect him to be better in week 7 than he was in week 1, and he's not.
Do you not think he looks more confident?
No,
really. Okay.
I mean, the throws he missed that did not look like a confident quarterback to me. The other part of it is, from a passing standpoint, he didn't make a single throw that Jarrett Stidham couldn't have made, and he missed throws that I would expect Jarrett Stidham to make. His running ability was good. But if I look at it through 7 games, if I'm in Chicago looking at Caleb Williams, or I'm in Washington looking at Jaden Daniels, both of them are work in progress. Both of them are better now than they were week 1. And I can sit there and honestly say, I've seen some things that I think are special. To be the quarterback for a decade, which a first-round quarterback should be, otherwise you're going to be a flop, you better be doing something special. Otherwise, you're caught in that purgatory of like mediocre quarterback, hoping to win 9-10 games, get in the playoffs and then get bounced. Like, you got to be special. I have not seen a single thing from Bo Nix that I think is special other than his ability to run. I don't even know if it's special. Like, Lamar is a special runner. It surprises me, but I also don't think that's something he's going to be able to do week in, week out. I just don't. I mean, you can do it against a New Orleans Saints team that in the Amazon crew hit the nail on the head in the postgame. It was embarrassing, the effort that New Orleans gave last night. That was, I don't know how Dennis Allen keeps his job after that. I get it. You're banged up. You're beat up. You're missing a bunch of guys. But effort is controllable, and that was pitiful.
All right. Well, before we move on to the defense, real quick, yes or no, would you take if Bo Nix was Kirk Cousins?
No,
If that's his future, no, that's not good enough for you.
no.
Okay,
And I think that's a ceiling. I don't think he'll get to that, but that's
Okay.
a really good example of like, yeah, Kirk Cousins is that guy that's just good enough to put up good numbers, get you in the playoffs, and go nowhere.
Yeah. Okay. So
He's
you're
Kirk-
not taking it if he's Kirk Cousins. That was just the first question there.
You would take it?
Yeah, I think I would take Kirk Cousins. I mean, obviously, it's not like preferred. Like, I'd rather have a top 5 guy, but only 5 teams have top 5 guys. There's not 15 top 5 quarterbacks.
I get it, but if you don't have one, you got to keep searching for one. You just don't marry a 6.
I guess I would say Kirk Cousins more like an 8, but
An
that's fair.
8. He's
Yeah, I'll give him an 8.
how many
Seven
NFC
and a half.
title games has he been in?
I believe 0.
Okay, never been to a Super Bowl, and he's an 8.
7.5. It was
Oh
7.5.
my gosh!
I'll give Kirk
I
Cousins.
wish I would have been in
7.5.
like classes and you were the teacher. The curve in which you grade people, Dante.
I mean, Kirk Cousins wins a lot of games, but all right, let's move on real quick. What would be your letter grade for Bo Nix? Last night only.
C.
C.
I think he was a D as a passer. I think he was an A or a B as a.
We'll go
runner.
total quarterback.
So
It
he
all
was a
counts, like
C.
I said. Okay.
He was a C.
C?
Probably a C plus. He was a C plus.
Okay, well, let's move on to something that looked a lot better. Looked all
I'll
better.
put it this way, not to interrupt you, but
Yeah, you're fair.
they
Go
win that game with anybody at quarterback.
Do you think I could win the game?
Any NFL quarterback. If you trade quarterbacks last night, they win that game with Spencer Rattler.
Hey, that's fair. Spencer Rattler didn't look too good. Spencer Rattler did not impress me much.
Spencer
especially
Rattler
when Jake
was not
Hayner
their
went in there
problem
at the end.
Spencer Rattler was not their problem.
Yeah, well, we were getting pressure all night. Speaking of, let's move on to the Broncos defense. 6 sacks. We had 5 different guys get individual sacks, and well as 2 guys share a sack. Got pressure all night. 25 different guys recorded tackles. So it's kind of a group effort. Everyone was doing their thing. No Patrick Surtain. How impressed were you by the defense?
Very. Listen, I've been impressed by this defense all along. I think at this point, they have a 7-0 defense. They really do. They weren't great against the Chargers, but they were good enough to win. They weren't great, especially in the second half against Seattle, but they were good enough to win. I mean, they gave the Broncos the ball twice at the 20-yard line in the first half. They got 2 safeties in that game. They did their part. They're a defense that's good enough to be 7-0. They were really good last night. They weren't going up against much, right? It's a third string quarterback when you consider the fact both Carr and Taysom Hill were out.
Taysom Hill's not
the receivers. Well, would they have been better off last night with Taysom Hill?
I don't think they would have started Taysom Hill if he was healthy.
Okay.
I think they would have mixed him in, but I still think it would have been Rattler taking 80% of the snaps. But all right, continue.
They're playing receivers that, their 2 best receivers were out. It was an offense ready to be dominated, and the Broncos came out and dominated them. I love the way they fly around. I love the way they put pressure on the quarterback. There's nothing to not like about it. VJ is going to get a much deserved second chance to be a head coach because he's done a great job with this group.
Yeah, I was very impressed. Again, they did what they're supposed to a bad team, and not every team in the NFL does that. Some teams would still play this banged up Saints team in a 10-point game or in a 7-point game. So it was
a little bit of no, you're right.
Okay.
But it was a recipe for it to be this, in that Sean Payton's return to New Orleans, they weren't going to go in there and like, it's a bad Saints team. It's a banged up team. Will be like, they were going to be hyper focused. If they'd have been playing the exact same type of a game in Indianapolis, let's say, where there wasn't that hype, I could have seen that being a game where you go in there. It's like, how in the world are they struggling against this group? I think it was just a perfect recipe for it to be a blowout.
Well, you say perfect recipe. I guarantee you can give me some perfect recipes, and I would still not cook it the way that some others would. So
sure.
I think there is something to the way they still performed, albeit having a recipe for a blowout win. Quan Alexander, Cody Barton recovered fumbles. Did you like the takeaways from the team? I mean, taking the ball away has not been a specialty of the Broncos. They had that stretch last year, but in general, any takeaway is great.
They got a defensive touchdown. I mean, that's part of what helps turn it into a route. So, the defense was great. They really were. And they gave up a garbage time touchdown at the end. I don't put a lot of stock in that. I mean, they dominated that game defensively. They were good offensively. They were fine, especially running the football. You can't settle for 4 field goals, but whatever, putting points on the board. But defensively, it was just another dominant performance. They've been great in 5 of the 7 games.
Yeah, and they do have the little mini bye here with the Carolina Panthers coming up, so hopefully they can extend, get another win streak going here after that 3-gamer earlier. Let's finish up with some Buffs. Big game this weekend after they lost at Folsom last weekend. They're down in Tucson taking on U of A, currently 2.5-point underdogs, so should be a good game. They're expecting a tight loss for them. 2 p.m. on Fox National Television. Should get a lot of eyeballs. There's another big game going on at 1:30, but still should be a lot of eyeballs on them. Are you expecting a win down in Tucson?
I wouldn't say I'm expecting one. I'm hoping for one.
Okay.
I mean, what a difference there is between 5-2 and 4-3, right?
Yeah,
like,
those numbers sound like wildly above.
Yeah, 5-2, you're like, hey, we're doing things, and 4-3, you're like, can we keep our head above water? Like, that's a huge difference. If you can bounce back from the loss, which was a disappointing loss, they had the game, they came all the way back, they had a late fourth quarter lead, and they blew it against K-State. You got to bounce back and not let this thing snowball down the wrong side of the hill. I'm not going to say I'm expecting them to win, but I'm picking them to win. I think the Buffs go down and get the win and get the victory and get back on track. And I still think they have a chance to do some great things this year. I'm not quite sure they have a chance to do special. Got to see how some other things play out, but almost everything's still in front of them. It's all gone if you can't beat Arizona, though. So I think they get the win.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think they go down to Tucson and win. I think it'll be a barn burn. I think we're going to get a lot of points. And I think Shedeur Sanders will prove that, hey, I'm a top 5 pick in the draft next year. Travis Hunter, I believe, will have a great game. He's going up against T-Mac. McMillan is the receiver for Arizona, who's supposed to be a first-round pick. So not often you get to see two future first-round picks go head-to-head in terms of wide receiver and cornerback. So that should be exciting. And then, something about that hot air and fall that seems to score a lot of points. So
Yep.
I like the points, and I like CU to come out with a win too. It should be, I could see it being like an overtime game or like a last 10-second touchdown kind of win. So should be a thriller, and it seems like CU's always in thrilling games. So
yeah, and like I said, I just think this is probably the pivotal game of the year, because if you win it, you start piling up some victories. You remain in the Big 12 chase. Shedeur keeps playing. Travis Hunter keeps playing. All of that. You lose, you go 4-3, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, can we just try to make a bowl game? How long are two guys that are projected in a mock draft that came out this week to go 1-2 overall? How long are they going to be playing in a season that's going nowhere? At some point, that becomes the conversation. You avoid that and kind of avoid it for a while here if you can get the win at Arizona.
Yeah, well, hey, let's hope CU can go down and get a win. Let's hope the Broncos have a nice little mini bye week and can continue their streak in Carolina. Or is it here or is that Carolina?
It's here.
I should know that. But yeah, okay, it's here.
They'll get another chance to beat a JV team, which will be good.
Hey, JV wins still count as wins for the NFL.
That's right.
No one takes that away from you. You don't get a half a point or half a win for that. So that'll do it for us, though. James, thank you for joining me. Everyone, thank you for listening. And we'll be back on Monday at noon. Richie Carney will be in my chair, but we'll be breaking down the Buffs' hopeful win and previewing the Panthers going forward. But everyone else, have a great weekend.